In 1990, the publication of Mosh Tishke Den Ratri provided a detailed psychological record of a nation's identity fracturing under sudden change. By 1990, Bangladesh hit an economic crossroads. The ancient, cyclical rhythms of agrarian life were suddenly encountering the pressures of rapid industrialization. The poet, Shimul Mahmud, documented the before and after of the Bengali psyche, using surreal imagery to record the transition from rural fields to urban centers. To understand the modern state, we must first look at the world Mahmud's subjects left behind, a mythic, water-bound landscape that had defined the region for centuries. The early passages map out a rural Bengal defined by water. Rivers hold ancestral memories, and rainfall is the primary element of childhood. These opening poems depict a landscape steeped in Rupkotha, local fairy tales, populated by flying horses, by protective spirits, and boats crossing vast rivers. Mahmud anchors this era by invoking the tradition of Rabindranath Tagore. This identity forms the cultural foundation for the rural population. But there is a growing tension. The poet notes villagers prefer to remain children, as the approaching modern world is an imposing, unfamiliar force. The text documents a specific anxiety taking hold. The moon, the ancestral soil, and rivers are drawn into a mechanical logic. This mythic past was not a permanent state. It was a fragile childhood teetering on the edge of a sudden awakening. The surrealism gives way to economic detail in the poem Patar Rochona, or Composition on Jute. The lives and physical movements of these farming families are dictated by the cycles of mud and rain, specifically the timing of the jute harvest. Extracting this golden fiber from rotting stalks requires constant physical effort, connecting the workers directly to the material they pull from the water. These agricultural rhythms timed birth, labor, and death to the requirements of the soil. But the text notes a shift in the younger generation. They begin to look away from the muddy fields and fix their gaze on the horizon. Falling crop values and the need for currency in the cities began to strain the rural ecosystem from the outside. The displacement from these land-based cycles left the national psyche without its traditional cultural anchor. The collection records a disruptive shift as heavy machinery and industrial speed began to cut through the quiet landscape. The steam locomotive represents a mechanical force physically pulling the population away from the fields and toward a different kind of labor. Youth abandoned the jute harvests to become passengers on long-distance coaches, seeking wages in urban centers. The destination of this mass migration is explored in the poem Poshak, or Dress, where the workers reach the factory floor. Mahmud describes the environment inside Shaukat garments. The open fields are replaced by mechanical rows of laborers hunched over sewing machines. The natural fibers of the past are replaced by red smoke, synthetic fabrics, and industrial noise. This migration replaces the traditional cycle of rain and soil with the requirements of industrial survival. This leads to the book's title, Day and Night in the Brain, which maps the psychological divide within this urbanized population. In this framework, day represents the rural childhood memories and the agrarian past that persists in the mind. Night is the adult reality of the city, the isolation and the daily grind required for survival. This created a situation where a person physically exists in modernized streets, while their internal consciousness remains anchored in a rural landscape that has been paved over. This divide results in a pervasive nostalgia and a feeling of being out of place within a rapidly changing country. Industrialization changed the physical landscape, but it did not erase the agrarian identity, leaving a generation caught between two worlds. The collection ends with a poem that moves away from the factories and back to the myth of Adam and Eve. Mahmud uses the story of the first humans as a metaphor for the basic desire for connection and shelter. He links this ancient myth to the modern garment workers. Despite the shift from rivers to machines, their fundamental needs remain unchanged. The need for love and community transcends both the mythic past and the industrial present. Mosh Tishke Din Ratri documents how these emotional needs persist even as the external world is entirely replaced.